Well, for the third time in Jerry Dipoto's tenure as now president of baseball operations of the Seattle Mariner, wow, he's going to enter the season as a lame duck executive. Third time.
Yeah, why do they keep doing this? We talk about like messing around with free agency and payroll. Why are you messing around with your president of baseball operations contract? And now Hollanders and Services too, which they're important for sure. But it all starts with Jerry because everything in the baseball ops department starts with Jerry. So I don't think the Mariners would let him go, but I am wondering why they haven't gotten this deal done yet for a number of reasons. But like, let's just start with that. Why hasn't ownership got like taken care of this?
I have a thought. I'm thinking, I'm rewinding the clock back to December. We're at the low point of the offseason. Jared Kelenic had just been traded, and you and I are sitting here trying to figure out the future of the Mariners franchise and how they go and what happens to Jerry and how Jerry can navigate and how Jerry can possibly keep his job if they were to somehow miss the playoffs again in 2024. Is this not ownership hedging that? Where they're going to wait until June or July or even August to see where the team is, to not have to commit money to Jerry Dipoto beyond the season if they don't feel like he's the guy to lead them into the future. Because you and I said, by deadline of this season, if the Mariners are not in contention, Jerry Dipoto's seat is warm. In fact, probably warmer than warm. So if ownership thinks the same way, they might not want to commit any dollars beyond this season. Given their spending habits, that's not exactly a surprising thing, Lau. Do they want to pay executives they don't want on the team past this season?
I'm sorry, how can Jerry Dipoto's seat be warm, even if they're not in playoff contention, which I don't think that's going to be the case? Whose fault is that if they're not in playoff contention? I'll tell you whose fault it is. It's the people that aren't letting their baseball ops people run their team with a reasonable payroll. Here's the problem if you let Jerry go. Everybody goes with him. It's not just Jerry. People need to keep that in mind. It's not just Jerry if you let Jerry Dipoto go. It's the entire front office staff or most of his guys, everybody that's responsible for the unbelievable player development they've had over the last few years with young guys and continuing to restock the farm and their scouting department. Like, they all go too. Does John Stanton and the rest of the ownership group think cleaning house is going to change things? I don't, because you're going to go hire somebody else and say, welcome to the team. Here's the job. You get a $120 million payroll. Nobody else is going to be able to maneuver their way around that unless you went and got Eric Neander from the Rays. I don't think he's leaving Tampa. If he did, you'd have to pay him more. And when has ownership group been interested in paying more for things? I don't know how in the world you could let this regime go. And if they do, I'll tell you what, I'm going to be very, very upset about it if they do. Maybe that's what ownership's doing. Maybe they're waiting to see how the season shakes out. I think that's a mistake because that can turn into Dipoto getting antsy if he really thinks his seat's warm, and irresponsibly manage the trade deadline, or try to at least, because he could make some moves that are a little bit all out and don't feel like a 5-year plan type of move or even a 3-year plan type of move. It feels like a 2-month plan type of move. I don't like the idea of trading away Colt Emerson or Cole Young for some rental. And if he doesn't have a new contract, is it going to lead to that? I don't know.
So, okay, let me try and dig into that reaction you just had a little bit. So even if if this team falls flat on its face by the trade deadline, that reaction you had stays the same.
It does, and it's not like none of it would fall on Jerry and Justin, because if they're falling flat on their face, that means some of the moves that they tried to make have not worked out, although I think we all sit here right now and say the moves they have made are sound moves. Because, again, whose fault is it if they do not have a winning record by the trade deadline? It's the people that said you can't spend any money, and Jerry and Justin still managed ways to get creative and build a competitive roster in spite of that.
Yeah. Okay, so you're right. In the end, the failures of most sports organizations are the owners. Like, we know that. That is a given fact. However, the owners don't have bosses besides their own board of directors. Those are their bosses. Those are the decisions. The shareholders are the decision makers. But the shareholders with the Seattle Mariners, as you and I know, are probably pretty happy with where the franchise valuation is going, and the luxury seating and the Halfback Bar and Grill, and well, even though their television money won't make as much as they anticipate in the future, I'm sure they will probably still be in the green because that's how they've operated forever. They won't let the profits get cut into. They won't let the major league roster cut into the profits. So then we sit at the deadline, and the Mariners are perhaps out of contention. If they are, right, we're sitting here thinking, in John Stanton's case, we're saying, okay, even though I've set a small budget, I still expect my GM to be good enough to find a way to win. And it would be one playoff appearance in 9 seasons for Jerry Dipoto at that point. If they were not able to make it this season, it would be 1 in 9. Most GMs, Lyle, don't make that. Don't make that in an organization that says they want to win, survive that. So I'm thinking from that perspective, it's a wait and see mode. It was the same thing in 2021. They, in 2021, wanted to make sure that the rebuild for Jerry was going along the way they envisioned. And they seriously thought about giving Jerry a 1-year extension into 2022. It was like, all right, let's see some fruit. If we don't like the fruit, you're getting canned. You're gone. And he eventually ended up securing a 3-year contract extension when they were in contention in September. But that took all the way until September 1st for that extension to get announced. September 1st. Like they really don't have much hesitance to letting this play out and sort of making him prove it. Not saying it's fair, but this is how the ownership is operated with these kinds of things. And it stinks for him. It doesn't make any sense, but that's where we're at.
I can't buy the 1 appearance in 9 years thing. And this is why. You talk about a guy that had to deal with 2 atrocious ownership groups or subpar ownership groups at the very least. Think about when Dipoto came in after having to deal with Artie Moreno. He comes in, he's got an old aging roster with expensive contracts. You got Felix, you got Robbie, you got Nelson Cruz, you got Kyle Seager. They tell him, we want to win with this core, so go do it. But you don't really have money to spend. Like, we're not going to go out and let you spend a bunch of money in free agency. So he tried. He got creative. He traded for Gene Segura. He traded for Mitch Haniger. He did some other things throughout the first couple of years. He traded for Alex Colomé and Denard Span. Like, he tried. Didn't work. He got ownership to agree to a rebuild. Because, again, like you talk about the 2018 deadline, they wouldn't let him spend for a lot of 2016, 17, 18. There was a cap on spending. So Jerry said, look, this roster's not good enough. We have to rebuild. We have to get younger. We have to get more athletic. We have to get exciting. So they did that. There was a COVID season that canceled 2020. Obviously, they were not good in 2019. Like that's not a fair shake. And I'm sure people out there that don't like Jerry Dipoto are going to use the 1 playoff appearance in 9 seasons thing. I don't think that's fair. Because then he's been given no payroll to spend anyway after the rebuild too. So again, like once this rebuild formed together in 21, they won 90 games in 21. They just missed. They win 90 in 22. They get there. They win 88 in 23. And they just missed. Like, that's the window for Dipoto I'm kind of looking at. And even then, they still didn't let him spend. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm passionate about this subject. And probably the reason I am is I would challenge you or anybody listening that says, and I'm not saying you say this. I know you're just kind of presenting the other side of the argument. I would challenge anybody listening that says, I would like to see somebody else run this team other than Jerry Dipoto. I challenge you to find who that is and what type of staff he can bring in that not only develops players this well, but also can deal with ownership's restricted payroll. That's not changing. Whoever they bring in, if this were to happen, it's not changing. So I would sit long and hard and think about if you really think a change is what's best. I do not believe that.
Doesn't necessarily mean it's fair, but it certainly is a lot easier to sell to the public of 1 playoff appearance in 9 seasons. And in the end, that's all that matters, right? Public perception of the organization. Because
the public should get smarter. They should realize 1 in 9 seasons.
Unfortunately, you and I both know the public. Like the public is like, as much as you want that to happen, it won't happen. It will not.
Yeah. Well, sorry, I said hyphen. I think I meant asterisk behind the 1 appearance in 9 years. Yeah, you're right. You're right. But I don't know. Like with what they just put in place, I don't know what hasn't warranted an extension right now. If you're the ownership group and you were given this payroll and now you see that this team is supposed to be better than it even was before, despite not spending the money, maybe they want to see how it shakes out and actually see the players play first and see if guys can stay healthy. But for all the effort Jerry and Justin have put into this thing, I don't know how they haven't deserved it already alone. Scott Servais too, all of them.
Yeah.
I don't know how they haven't deserved it alone already.
So I would probably prefer Jerry Dipoto over somebody else in the future. But I vividly remember our conversation, and I still do feel this way, that this team absolutely needs to be in contention by this deadline, bar none, right? For everyone to have a secure future. That needs to be the case. For there to be zero discussion about turnover, they need to be in contention. And given the uncertain financial future of this franchise, looking into the future, and they say, well, we're not totally sure Jerry's our guy. Well, there's a better way to save some money. And they've never been afraid to save some money in spots like this.
I'm just telling the people right now, and I'm telling you, we are going to have a real problem if those guys do not get brought back. Look, in all likelihood, the Mariners should be in contention by the deadline. I would be shocked if they were not in contention by the deadline. That would be a failure in its own right. But if they're in contention by the deadline, like by the All-Star break, you better get this done. Because to mess around with GMs and president of baseball ops and managers' contracts, I don't love that. I really don't love that. And honestly, above all else, even past like Scott Servais' deal, Jerry's. Like, you cannot mess around with that contract. He is running the franchise in a sense. Like, he's not the owner, but he is the one who sails the ship and makes this thing go. So to have uncertainty with the captain of your ship, I don't love that. I don't love it at all. And I would think if you're Jerry, he probably can't be too happy about it either. He's probably looking at this ownership group saying, look at the way you handcuffed me. Look at what I did as a result. Now, where's my reward? That's what I'd be saying.
Just remember that as we wrap up this segment, remember how you are now asking the Mariners to make a sound, logical decision. Just remember that.
I am, yes. We have also asked them to make the logical decision of spending fair money on a competitive team, and they haven't done that. Yeah, so I don't know. I guess this is a subject I'm passionate about because, and part of it's probably PTSD from all the days growing up of dealing with Bill Bavasi and Jack Z. I do not, under any circumstance, want to go back to that. You can be frustrated when the Mariners lose. You can be frustrated if they miss the playoffs. You can be frustrated if this front office makes moves that maybe you don't agree with. Whatever those feelings are, I have had a hell of a lot more fun with Jerry Dipoto and crew at the helm of this team than I used to with Jack Z and Bill Bavasi. I do not want to go back to those days. I don't want to think about hiring a GM who could put us back in those days. No, I'm good. So for me, it's Jerry.
I concur with that. I concur. Yeah. I'm having more fun.
Yes. And look, the truth is this has happened multiple times, like you said, and they got it done late. Maybe one way or another, that's what's going to happen anyway, is come the summertime or August, August is still summer, early September. Maybe that's what happens. Maybe there's a press release that says, hey, we just extended Dipoto, we extended Hollander, we extended Scott Servais. That'd be great. That'd be great. I hope that's what happens. I hope it happens earlier than that, but I hope by the end of the regular season, that is what happens. And in all likelihood it will, but I just don't like the uncertainty of making my mind spin and thinking back of the days of growing up of, Bavasi, Jack Z. Like, I can't go back to that. I cannot go back to that age. I cannot do it. So
nothing spurned it more than us building our all 2000s and all 2010s Mariners teams on social media. Go check them out.
please go check them out. Good. That's where the PTSD is probably coming from. So yeah, that would be something.